Are you ready to talk guns?
Oh, yeah.
You're itching to talk guns. The second you walked in here today,
Why not
guns and guns and guns. All right, so you're not packing at the moment, but you're obviously a huge defender of the Second Amendment. So was the gun piece of your political evolution, how much was that the whole thing, that you realized that you needed to be able to defend yourself and you wanted your community to be able to do that and all that?
It was a big part, but definitely still the fiscal side was the transition part, and that's why I went to RAND at first. But no, the guns became an issue for me, particularly because it was so personal for me, being on a college campus. I was a graduate student in 2015, and the campus carry issue came about again. I was, flabbergasted that it was going for a third time in Texas, of all states, and it was looking that it might not pass again.
Yeah.
And
Can you
I
just
was sick of
explain what
it.
campus carry is?
Yeah, so campus carry is concealed carry on college campuses. So basically, for example, Texas, you're allowed to conceal carry if you're over the age of 21, if you pass a mental health and a criminal background check. If you go through all the processes you're supposed to do, then you're able to have a gun on your person out of your house. So that campus carry is bringing that right, really, bringing that permit holder and enabling them to be able to use that same thing on a college campus.
Right.
And so basically that's what it is.
Does each college have their own policy on that?
So
is that what the fight is?
So the fight is state by state. So that's how it's, with campus carry. So in Texas, what they passed, the bill was that every public university and now community college, starting August 1st of this year, has to have some type of concealed carry on campus legislation. The difference they did on that one last minute, though, was that they added an amendment saying that every college gets to put policies of where gun-free zones within that college would be. And so a lot of my work when I joined Students for Concealed Carry, when I was with them, was basically looking at every college that was trying to, because they're obviously anti-campus carry, and trying to null and void the whole bill in general, and making sure that they weren't putting out these outrageous policies where someone like me wouldn't be able, or wouldn't even want to carry on campus because it would be so hard to.
Right,
and
so
that
basically
was
they gave them, the law was written in a way that gave them so much leeway that they could create every gun-free zone everywhere.
If they,
and you'd have to walk like you were doing a maze.
Exactly, and that was the intention, and we fought against that. And so right now, how it is right now, a lot of people are able to carry on campus in Texas, and Georgia just got the same thing just a couple weeks ago.
The concept of gun-free zones I find really interesting, because I see people on the left constantly screaming, we need more gun-free zones, gun-free zones. Now, the idea of that sounds fine on the surface level, but only the bad guys are going to break the law to bring the gun there, and then you might need a gun to take them out. I mean, did I just blow your mind with that?
That
was pretty wild.
Oh,
right?
yeah, I know. Just come on. Those criminals, they have hearts too, okay? They could change their minds.
Right. As if
a really good sign could change their mind.
Yeah, like they're looking through the penal code like, wait, can I do it at the, no, gun-free zone. Sorry, can't do it over there. But really, so that kind of thing, it sounds so idiotic. Regardless of what you feel about guns in general, just where you want legalization or states' rights or any of that, like the very concept of this sounds just nuts.
Well, but again, the messaging is that there are still people who believe it. And the thing about campus carry too is what I learned with concealed carry on campus is that it wasn't just the left either, the ones who are just blatantly, I'm anti-gun, I don't want guns anywhere. I say that I don't like the Australian gun ban, but I really kind of do type people. It's really the people that I had to convince the most were the people on the fence, or what we had to convince the most with Students for Concealed Carry when I was with them, is that those Republicans, right, and not just the Republican students or the constituents, but even the Republican congressmen and women who would say that, yeah, I'm pro-Second Amendment and guns should be for all people, but on college campuses, I don't know, the students. It was something about students on campus that for some reason, it was okay to have gun-free zones because it was an extension of what we think about students right now. And we're seeing UC Berkeley students, and we're like, is that the type of people we want with guns?
Right.
No.
I don't think but that's an interesting point.
But yeah, exactly. But so we had to convince those type of people the most, particularly women. And so that's where I came in when I was able to talk to those women and say, hey, you know what? The reason why I started fighting for campus carry is because I want the choice to be able to protect myself from someone who wants to harm me. Look, I understand there are physical differences, and regardless if there's physical differences or not, that person has a gun, I don't, who's winning? And so talking to women one-on-one about that, that's when I was really able to get people to start understanding it and getting it, because a lot more people understand the self-defense aspect of it versus, oh, the Second Amendment guarantees you that right type of argument as well.
Is this an area where you're able to use a little of their messaging against them? Because if you listen to a lot of the messaging that's going on college campuses, there's rape culture, it's constant rape culture, that's what I'm saying, and all these guys are just, especially the white guys, the frat guys are coming to rape all the women, which we know there's no rape culture here, really, of a real rape culture. Of course, rape happens, of course.
Of course.
But are you able to use that messaging against them and go, ladies, if you believe that, then what I'm telling you actually makes some sense.
Absolutely. And that's why I started my organization Empowered, because no one was really talking about that on our side. I know, granted, campus carry is a fairly new concept in the last 10, 15 years, but to go a step further of those women who I would have to try and, convince the most and saying, you know what, and men too, when I talk to men and they would be at me and say, how dare you try to bring guns on campus? Women, blah, 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 blah. And then I would say, oh, well, don't you actually want that woman to be able to protect themselves from that? And then I would think, oh, I never thought of it.
They have that moment? You see
several times, several times. And maybe because I'm a woman, I'm telling them about it. And also I'm a black woman, because they'll use the race card on that one as well to say, actually, as a black person, I want to protect myself from that bigot in that scenario you're talking about. If you keep me defenseless, I can't protect myself in that scenario. Also, as a woman, I want that option to protect myself because you're also keeping me defenseless in that scenario. So talking to these girls on campus, women on campus, and telling them that if you so choose to have this as your tool for self-defense, you should have that right to it. They get it then, regardless of what ideology of politics or who they voted for before that. Liberal women, libertarian, classical liberal, whatever, Trump people, Bernie people, I've seen every single type of girl or person change their minds about guns because they see it as a self-defense issue. And people need to bring the messaging around that versus what they've been doing before.
Yeah. Do you fear any kind of slippery slope with all this, so that you do a campus carry, and let's say in Texas you have totally concealed carry right now?
Concealed carry
outside.
Yes, and open carry. They have that now, but in the terms of campus carry, it's concealed.
Right. So the open carry, it's like when we see these pictures of like four guys with what appear to be rifles, like at Chipotle, and it looks kind of scary. That just seems kind of scary to me. Maybe
absolutely
not to you.
No, it's definitely scary.
So then how do we have that conversation then? Like the slippery slope part of this, where it's like, all right, well, if everyone can have open carry and you can wander into a Chipotle with a gun on your back, and you can have guns everywhere, that the slippery slope of we're going to end up being just the Wild West. Like we're going to go to a place where people are going to start getting into arguments all the time and solving it that way. Do you just see that as a nonsensical starting point?
I
can see it. You're looking at me kind of.
I'm like, man, the points I'm going to make right now are lay it out. Point one. And so first of all, the Wild West thing, I will talk to that because it's funny. I always hear that, especially on the left. I'm like, oh, okay, why don't you actually read your history? Because the Wild West was actually even more gun control friendly because they made everybody check their guns with the sheriff. So just some knowledge right there.
Yeah. So like when you go to a town.
When you go to a town, you would have to give your gun to the sheriff, and he would make the decision for you if you could have your gun or not. So it's not the Wild West, it's the opposite. Another thing is that, obviously I can't make I can't lie and say that those people aren't doing that. I definitely don't think that's the proper way to get people on our side. But for the majority of the time, it's people, if they're open carrying, if they are, I've still have yet to see very many people do it since we've had it in Texas. Then they're responsible people. They're people that they don't look like they're threatening or they're going to harm someone. Do I still believe and know that there are people who are fearful when they see stuff like that? Absolutely. Me, not too long ago, I was the same person. And I think we have to have that honest conversation is like, look, I was a gun rights activist before I even purchased a handgun. Because for a long time, I thought, maybe the gun will just go off. You know, I didn't know the mechanics of a gun. People, they're not going to just learn it just naturally. They have to know it by people educating them. And you have to be patient and stop yelling at them in their face and bringing AR-15s in their face saying, you must, I demand that you accept my side of thinking.
Right.
And talk to them and have a conversation. Let them know that you're a good human being first, and the people behind those guns are good, law-abiding citizens. And then you'll start to change people's minds on the guns, because it's not really about the gun, it's about the person.
So I like that last sentence particularly, because I know that if I had a gun right now of any caliber, I would not walk into a school and start shooting people. I wouldn't walk into a mosque or a temple or anywhere. I simply wouldn't do that because of my own mental capacity, and I'm not following an ideology that would want me to do that or anything of that nature. But do you see any of this as, when we have these shootings, do you see any of it on the fault of the guns, or do you always believe it's ideology and mental health and whatever else, upbringing? And all
I never see it as the gun. I see it before even Wayne LaPierre made it a popular, good guy with a gun type saying. I've never seen it as that. I've seen it as the people behind it. I mean, you can use any tool to harm someone. UT Austin just a couple weeks ago had the stabbing. Which is funny because they turned it around and said, well, campus carry didn't help us in that situation. Well, it's not about that. It was about the fact that, to talk about the stabbing, a student with mental health issues stabbed several people, killing one freshman. And a lot of organizations, a lot of news outlets said, well, campus carry didn't help us in that situation. Well, that's part of it too, is that...
Well, the argument doesn't make sense because it doesn't mean that everyone's going to have a gun there automatically. So
absolutely.
You're just picking one anecdotal.
Absolutely, but people don't see that. They see someone was killed, and they see that there are guns on campus, and guns are supposed to be the enemy there. But it's about the person. We have to make sure that we are keeping these people healthy. We have to talk about mental health. Let's just talk about that more. It doesn't have to be a taboo issue. And I hope on our side we'll talk more about that, and we won't be the reactionary side to the people who are bringing it up. Let's be the forefront and the advocates for mental health just as much as we are advocates for guns. Why not?
So what kind of checks do you think are actually legit? Like if you were fresh writing the law right now.
Oh, man. I've always stuck to the fact of campus carry. I feel like when you bring other legislation in there and that it waters down your argument, with campus carry especially, I don't see myself changing my views on the fact that concealed carry is a good way to go when it comes to going on college campus. Maybe because we still have a whole lot of other states to convince before that, and it has helped to say, look, there are these checks in place. If you are afraid of students having a gun on campus, look, the law, the state says it's okay. So I know you're a big fan of the state administrative office, so at least trust them in this scenario too. It's helped. I will say that. So I will say that. Yeah, right now, I open carry when I work at a gun range. I open carry at the gun range. Am I totally fine with that? Yeah, definitely. Am I afraid of someone else who has one? No, but I do know that there's a fear behind that. And so let's just be smart about it. Let's take back that phrase common sense and bring it on our side and use common sense with some things.
Yeah, so what about just in the more broad sense about access to guns? Like, are you okay with that being a state right? Whatever the background check is and all that, should that all be kicked back to the states? Should it be even more local? Anything like that?
And I know that they do things here in California differently in
We're
Texas.
a whole other thing here. You don't have
I
to
was like,
address
what?
California
County?
directly. Yeah.
We just have all the gun lights. Let's just all be like Texas. Let's just say. I think, as a libertarian leaning person, I do believe bringing it back to the states and then having that issue, that right to that is important. Same thing with campus carry. Do I think it should ever become a federal issue? With campus carry, I think it's been good as a state by state issue. Yes, it's harder, but man, I think right now, having the background checks and making sure that people behind them are law-abiding citizens is important. But again, it doesn't matter on the gun control side. They'll take those law-abiding citizens and make them demons regardless. So that's what we're seeing right now, is that these law-abiding citizens that statistically have hurt less people than the general public are demonized every time these mass shootings and these things happen in gun-free zones.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's where the fight is.
So are we having the same problems with the gun discussion that we're having with terrorism discussion, in that we only talk about it right after something horrible happens?
Absolutely.
So that we can never have because then they'll say, well, now's not the time to talk about it. And then people start screaming about it because they're upset about dead people, which is completely legit, obviously. But that in the moments between, we're not good at talking about anything, actually. That's when people just start living their lives and doing their thing. So we go from crisis to crisis to crisis, which certainly doesn't help, a calm argument, regardless of what side you're on this.
And we're having that issue even now in the age of Trump, is that people, you look at the gun industry, ask anybody right now and see if gun sales are down and ammunition is down because, first of all, people thought Hillary was going to be president, and so it went up, and then now it's down because people think, oh, it's okay. If it's Trump, he's with NRA, everything's going to be fine. They become complacent. And so it's actually harder for those people like me who are advocates to say, no, this is not going to be forever. And if you are complacent now, especially on the state level, which is where all this stuff is happening, you're seeing this right now in California, where the states are really making the decisions, and then say we get someone who's completely on the left on next time. We're already 8 years behind. So you have to continue that fight, even when it's not sexy, when you think that, on the federal level we're good. That's actually the most dangerous time, because people are not looking and people are able to get in ways that no one keeps them accountable. So that's the scary part.
Where do you think Trump fits into all this? Because the NRA loved him. He doesn't strike me as a real gun person one way or another. He's a New Yorker. So this isn't a guy that, maybe he had security, or I'm sure he has security that walks around with a gun. Obviously now he's the Secret Service. But his whole life, he lived in the liberal bubble of New York City. It just doesn't strike me as a pet issue of his. But the NRA loved him. I think he's said the right things for that group. Do you have a real sense of what he really believes on this?
I really think he's legitimate about, and that's why, I said people get mad at me, but it was about pro-life issues and being able to defend myself. And I felt like on those two key issues for me that he was going to be strong on them. And so far, he's been very strong on both those issues. I don't see him changing fiscal issues, the budget, and healthcare. Now that I'm always open to debating him about, because I don't think he's ever was an advocate for limited government in that sense, but those two issues, I feel.
Right, in many ways, he was much more of a Democrat.
Absolutely.
In that kind of stuff. Although right now he is chopping a lot of the federal amount that we're spending on a lot of programs.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, we'll see. Exactly. We'll see. We'll see.
Let's talk about the pro-life thing for a minute. So I'm pro-choice, but I view abortion as a horrible choice. That I know several women that have had abortions. Nobody takes it lightly. Unfortunately, a lot of the messaging I think that you get from the far left on abortion is they've fetishized it into almost being something cool.
Well, Lena Dunham says that she wishes she had an abortion, that type of stuff.
Yeah. No, really. You're not making that up. And I see a lot of videos on YouTube that have, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views, where they're just talking about it in such a casual, sort of fun way. There was that video of the girl who worked at an abortion clinic who had an abortion, and she videotaped the whole thing, and there was a lot of questions as to whether she purposely got pregnant or just so she could make. Just all kinds of crazy crazy stuff. I view it as just as a horrifically impossible existential question, and that my go-to here, ironically, would be a little bit like what got Tommy Lahren in some hot water, which is that it shouldn't be the government deciding what you should do with your body. So I'll just hand it to you from there, and then we can go.
Yeah, well, there's so much on that. I just know.
Come on, small L libertarian.
I know, small L libertarian.
Why am I wrong on that?
That is the one thing that, but actually I can make a really good argument.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of libertarians have is that if the government's there to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, I mean, you don't have any of that without life. So that's a big side with me is that, yeah, you need to protect life. And I think that's why people are kind of getting away from that and they're going to the argument of when life begins, right? And that's why it's shifted that way because more people are thinking, well, you're right. I mean, you can't have life without, if you're going to do that. So, but I mean, I've always been,
Do you like arguing
Christian.
in that space though? Because I think that's a healthy argument to have. Like we could, neither one of us are scientists, but we could sit here and say, I think for the first month that you can have an abortion, and I think it's a hard choice, but acceptable.
Yeah.
There's at least some room to, if you believe it's conception, then we can't quite get there on that, and that's okay. But at least there's some talking points there, right?
Absolutely. Well, there is definitely talking points, and I will be honest, I'm still trying to figure out what I believe. I will say probably right now I still believe that it comes to, conception, that life starts there. But, I'm still evolving. You can see the last 8 years that my views have changed, and that's the thing. I'm open to many things, but I will say,
well, that's refreshing.
Emotional.
I get to say it every now and again. I'm evolving, or I'm not fully there, or whatever. Yeah.
It would be a lie for me to say otherwise, but I will say it is primarily emotional for me. I not that I've had to deal with that personally, but life is just something so important to me. I mean, women and children are something so important to me, and I just believe that if we're not protecting them because they are vulnerable, they don't have a voice, then what are we really doing if we can't protect those who don't have a voice, whether that's students or that's those who are unborn? So I will say in that regards, I believe that the government should protect that right, the right to life.
So if, we'll do hypothetical here, if, scientists could, come down with the study that says, well, we know actually that it's not conception, but it's 6 weeks in, something magical happens, and that's when life begins. You think you could possibly? I'm really not trying to pin you.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to, because you're saying it's about feeling. You're feeling right now. So if they came,
which
in
I'm
with
sure may get a lot of like, what?
And that's,
here you are talking about feelings and emotions.
Someone on the right talking about feelings. But if they could lay down something that said, this is what we've been able to prove. Do you think that could be enough to shift you?
I don't know. It would have to be when it gets there, because it would be a lot of stuff. I'm a born again Christian, and that was 7 years ago, and so that's very important to me. And I just know that that's something that you should not be advocating for. Now, do I really think it's really that question? I think we'll have even if that happens, that there's still going to be people who are going to say, well, no, okay, we'll start at 6 weeks, but anything after that, and then people want the right to continue on. I think that argument is not going to end. But yeah, I really can't say whether or not if the science is there, if it starts at 6 weeks, if I change my mind because of that.
Well, how about we'll do this again?
That's a good one.
8 or 10 months, and we'll see.
Okay, there you go. That
sounds
sounds like I just shift my mind all the time. My decisions and my ideas.
We'll do it in 8 or 10 months after that.
Okay, we'll continue.
So
where's Antonia and her political spectrum today?
The evolution of Antonia.
Yes.
There's a movie there or something.
Yes.
So as a small L libertarian, does the pro-life thing then put you in a different tough spot, because you don't want the government to then have to pay for a child? But if a woman that is, poverty-stricken or whatever can't afford to have this child, then the government says, well, abortion's illegal, so you're going to have this child. Does the state then have any responsibility to help them? Because you can't like that idea as a libertarian, right?
But I don't even get that as like someone who advocates for maybe personal responsibility, to say that there's only two choices there. It's that, that the government says you can't have an abortion, so therefore it has to also take care of your children. We don't do that for anybody else. No, I mean, that's not, there's instance after instance where you're not doing that. So just to say that if that scenario happened, that we suddenly have to also at that time take care of that child, of course I think there should be some type of safety net. And, most libertarians believe that. It's just how long it is, to the point where it keeps someone from having that responsibility for their own life and the life that they choose to, or the life that they have and they take care of. No, I think that's where the community should come in, where the places of faith or what other faith that you have, the people around you should be helping with that. And I think that's what we advocate for as libertarians, is that no one said that the government is supposed to be taking care of us in that way, even when it comes to abortion.
Yeah. So you basically see it as just a false choice. Basically,
yeah.
right? It's just
yeah, to say that that's the two scenarios and that's it. You choose one, and if you're not libertarian. I don't believe that.
Yeah. All right. Well, this hour is completely flown by. So to wrap this thing in a nice bow, for all the people out there that are having their own political evolution, and I think you've been very frank and honest here and all that about your own continuing evolution, which is a beautiful thing, and that's what I try to bring to this every week. What would you say is the most important thing for someone that wants to get in the fight, even if they disagree with you politically, even if they sat and watched this for an hour and go, man, she's bonkers. But
or
just
my hair.
Hair or whatever. Rubin's babbling about God knows what. But what would you say to them about just like having that moment and being able to, talk about things that your parents may not like or that your family may be upset with or any of that?
I would say, fight on. That sounds so I swear I'm 27, guys. That sounds so like I'm in 80s era or something. But no, seriously, it's gonna be hard. If you really want to make a difference, having the conversations that are needed, most people are not going to do that. Keep at it. Because it's those people who believe they can make a difference or who are going to make a difference. We see it already today. So keep on, and there are other people doing the same thing. You're not alone. But it's important. We need that. We need that as a country, especially now. So.
All right. Well, this absolutely flew by. I didn't look down once. Pretty impressive. Are you impressed?
Awesome. I'm very impressed.
For more on Antonia, check out her website. It's AntoniaOkafor.com.